Slowly, the ponderous bulk of the starship storm swept approaches Relic Station. The docking clamps extend and clamp on, and Krista shuts down the engines as the station and the ship mate, and the gangway passage comes out automatically to connect to the exit of the ship. Little by little, she powers down the various different functions, her eyes sweeping over the placards and the labels of the controls that are written in a language anything other than Forge Common. She doesn't necessarily always understand these words, but she knows what the controls need and mean and what they do. She sits back and stretches in the command chair. It's been a long trip through the drift passages to reach Relic Station, and it was a cryptic and slightly frightening message from her friend, known by the call sign Zephyr, telling her that she needed Krista's help. Krista also has in her possession a small artifact that she dug up in her last attempt at scavenging something, and she needs Zephyr, who is an expert xenoarchaeologist, to take a look at it and provide some of her expertise. With a sigh, Krista gets out of the command chair, shuts down the last bits of controls in the cockpit, and then turns to head to the airlock and out through the gangway and into Relic Station. Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is session 1 of our new Starforged game with character Krista Sutton, also known as Jackpot, who is our main character for this playthrough. If you are just joining me, I will summarize what's been going on. We'll summarize our character and the universe and so on. But I did all of that in 3 different session 0 parts that are about an hour and a half, so I can understand if people don't necessarily want to watch all of that. So here's the summary. This is like Ironsworn. It's called Starforged, and it's made by the same guy who made Ironsworn, Sean Tompkin, and so the stats and everything are pretty much the same. So here's our character. She's smart, wits of 4. She's quick and brave, edge and heart of 3. Not as good with strength and sneaking. That's Iron and Shadow of 2. I will note that I'm using the easier array. I got used to using that in Ironsworn, and I'm going to use it here. It's possible that that might not be as, shall we say, necessary in Starforged, because there are some differences between the way the 2 games work, particularly with the way harm and progress work compared to Ironsworn, and maybe we don't need the other array. It wasn't suggested as a possibility for this game the way it was for Ironsworn, but I'm used to doing it this way, so that's what I decided to do. Krista is a lore hunter, a relic hunter. Basically, she was a mentor to a guy who hunted for relics. She kind of stowed away aboard his ship. His name was Pyro. His nickname was Pyro. And so she stowed aboard the Storm Swept. And eventually Pyro was fatally injured. And he passed on to her a small piece of an Exodus starship, a generation starship that the people of the Forge used to come here from their spiral galaxy, which is Triangulum. And then the pieces of the ship were sort of broken up, and he gave her one, and that's what she swears iron vows on. So her background vow is actually related to this, because what he told her, although she's never seen it herself, and he's never seen it himself, is that legend has it that on this piece of the ship, this shard of the Ophion, is inscribed a star chart, a navigational map to somewhere that will give the most important secret knowledge in the Forge. She asked him what this knowledge is, and what he told her was he couldn't say, that she had to earn the knowledge for herself, that if she didn't earn the knowledge herself, that knowledge could break her mind. And so she doesn't quite know what it is, but She's also a very curious person, and so if you look at the top, I decided to give her some motivations and quirks. I looked through Savage Worlds to find a couple of hindrances. So she's curious and loyal to people, and her quirks are she watches dramas like soap operas in the Weave, which is a communications network that they use to send signals from planet to planet and ship to ship. And she also always like tucks her hair behind her ear. She wears her hair back and tied back, and there are always little strands escaping the tie, and she's always tucking it back behind her ear. It's this little quirk of hers. We got her gear listed here. One of the things I did is I turned each gear into a journal item. So it's got notes. So instead of having all the pocket tool items listed here, I just have a pocket tool and so on. Gear is much like it is in Ironsworn. It's just done by supply. When you have a lot of supply, the odds are you have what you need. When you don't have a lot of supply, the odds are that you don't. So we're starting out with 5 health, 5 spirit, 5 supply, and 2 momentum, just like any starting character. Our background vow, right? The first thing that Pyro made her do was hold this item and swear an iron vow to find out which star lights up the map and then follow the map wherever it leads. And so that's her sort of life goal, is to do that. That's her background vow. So as she does this, we'll slowly make progress in the vow. I also want to point out that what I decided in terms of the way this looks, this piece of the Ophion, is that it's a small, looks like a medallion almost. It was obviously rough to begin with because it was a chunk, a piece of the hull, right? And I picture it being, I don't know, about half as thick as your finger, slightly curved, so convex on one side, concave on the other, and it was ragged around the edges, but that has been sort of sanded down and ground down so that it's smooth and won't cut you. And then what Krista did was she fitted like an O-ring around it. So even though it's not a perfect circle, once the O-ring is kind of fitted around it, it looks like a perfect circle. And then she hooked a chain around the O-ring, and she wears this thing around her neck like a necklace, but she doesn't like people to see it, so she wears it inside her shirt. So if you look closely, you might see that there's a chain like inside her collar, but you can't see the item unless she pulls it out, and she pulls it out to swear her iron vows on. And so that's what this fragment looks like. So she's a lore hunter. Her assets are the lore hunter path and the scavenger path, both of which are good for finding lore and scavenging things. She's got obviously the Stormswept, which is her starship. Then she has a survey bot named Iris, which is I think an investigation and reconnaissance assistant. I can't remember exactly what it stands for, but it's nicknamed Iris, and it will help her undertake expeditions when she is on land, but not in space with her spaceship. So what we need to do now. So let me go over a couple things. So I do apologize. The sector creation process was very slow and kind of gimpy, awkward, whatever you want to call it, because I wasn't sure how all this stuff was going to work, and I do apologize for that. If you watched it, I'm sure it was a bit painful. But we created our starting sector. This is called the Chronos Tide sector. The Chronos Tide sector is in a clump of sectors, a cluster of sectors called the Alpha Cluster. It's in the center of this cluster, and there are other hexes, there are other sectors around. I don't know what they're called yet. I don't know if Krista's ever been to them. I have no idea at this point. She probably has been to some of the others. And of course, this cluster of sectors is in a larger area that's got tons of clusters in it, in the globular cluster of the Forge, this galaxy. So we're right here. And that hexagon is this one. And then in the center of it, that hexagon is this sector. So I've drawn out the drift passages. These you can go to in a single move, kind of like facing danger once, but it's called following a charted path or something. But if you try to go anywhere else, because it hasn't been charted as a known passage, including getting out of the sector, you've got to undertake a journey because it's kind of unknown. I've done a couple other things here. So there are 3 planets, and I've set the planets so their names only show up when we hover over it. It just makes it a little less confusing. Planets are Saffron, which is a desert world, Cinder, which is like a volcano world, and Carrion, which is a toxic world. There are 3 settlements here, one on each planet. Brink is an agriculture and subsistence station on Saffron. Oops. Dead Rock is a mining and entertainment establishment on Dead Rock on Cinder, and Relic is a shipbuilding and research station in orbit around Carrion. And one of the things we found out about Carrion was that it has a thick, murky atmosphere. It is corrosive, so we're going to need our environmental suit and protection to go down here. It has these fungi in it, overrun with fungal life. But there's also a barren vault that you can see from space. And that may be where we're going to go first. Because Krista's connection, got her here. Krista's connection is Rowena Malik, also called Zephyr. And Zephyr lives on Relic Station. She's a xenoarchaeologist. She's a passive archaeologist, what I decided, because it says passive and gifted. She's really smart, but she's not the Indiana Jones type who goes out adventuring to find the pieces. She's more like Marcus, the museum guy that Indy brings the pieces back to be authenticated, right? So she's sort of an authenticator. She's like a researcher in the research station, but she tends not to go out. So she needs somebody else to go out. And I think the reason she's a connection for Krista is Krista finds stuff and brings it to Zephyr, Rowena to authenticate or appraise. And we know that her goal is to find a person. And I rolled up that this was a fellow archaeologist, and I named her, and you can see in the random rolls, Mina, also known as Dagger. And Mina is missing, and so our first inciting incident is going to be, I think, that Rowena is going to ask Krista for help. All right, but we're going to have to role play that out and make some rolls and swear iron vow and so on and so forth. So let's just quickly go over the world truths that we created at the beginning. If you want to see the details of it, please go and watch the first part of Session 0. Interdimensional entities invaded our reality in the old galaxy, in the Triangulum galaxy, and so we exited it. And in our exodus, we created a fleet of ponderous, massive ships that took a couple of thousand years to go the 1700 light years from Triangulum to this cloud galaxy, the Forge. And people lived out their lives on these ships without ever seeing land. And so then the ships have now been disassembled and used for the resources to create colonies and space stations and stuff. And of course, some people use the fragments of them to swear iron vows. And these are the Ironsworn, and Krista is now one of them. The communities are few and scattered. Iron is sworn on by using these ship fragments. Most of the frontier is lawless, and criminal factions and corrupt leaders hold sway. We don't really have any organized religion here. Magic is wielded by super rare people called paragons, who are genetically engineered. They're bioengineered. They're sort of manipulated. Communications data is done by having a network of hubs called the Weave that allow near instantaneous communication. Medicine is, medical supplies are fairly scarce, but there's a bunch of people called riggers who create organ and limb replacements. Artificial intelligence doesn't exist anymore. We rely on people called adepts who basically do the AI for us. And I'll talk about that more in a little bit. This is a perilous and often inhospitable galaxy, but life finds a way. In terms of precursors, over the eons, a vast number of civilizations rose and fell Today, folk we call grubs, scavenger crews, an audacious explorer, and Krista is a grub, delve into the mysterious monuments and ruins of those ancient buildings. And most people insist that horrors aren't real, but spacers know the truth. They are real, and you can find them in derelicts and vaults and scary places. So now I do want to look. Now, where did I put that? I thought I wrote up something about. Oh, I bet it's in here. No? Huh. Here we go. Okay, paragons. Sorry about that. So, the paragons are these guys who are genetically manipulated to have not magic, but like superhuman abilities. And there are three types of paragons. The adepts, we talked about the AI, they serve the functions that would have been left to AI. They run the data centers and hubs of the Weave, and you can also find one aboard a large starship, much bigger than Krista's, where you need a large crew like the USS Enterprise would have, an adept on it serving as in place of the main computer, because there isn't any artificial intelligence that they can that they have anymore. And then other paragons serve as these riggers to fit you with implants and artificial limbs. And then finally, there are other paragons who may end up living a military role in the merc guilds and stuff. And I think of these kind of like the biotic characters in Mass Effect who are able to do things like levitate you and like telekinesis and blast you with a biotic blast and things like that. So that's what the paragons are like. So I think that sets everything up, and didn't necessarily mean it to take this long. So now we have to get started. And so Krista walks through the airlock, through the gangway, the doors hiss open, and she ends up in Relic Station. Now, Relic Station is only populated by maybe 40 or 50 people, less than 100 people. So it's not that big. They do shipbuilding mostly with the aid of non-AI sort of mundane robots. And they build smaller ships here. I can't imagine this would be a shipyard for like battle cruisers. So they build things like shuttles and runabouts and so on and so forth, and then sell them to the highest bidder. So there are some workers going back and forth. They take deliveries of supplies here. They don't mine a lot of the raw materials from here. Dead Rock does the mining, and then along the drift passage, they bring the raw materials here, and then they're fabricated into spaceship parts. Remember, the authority here is corrupt, so that may come into it. From the outside, it looks like there are intimidating defenses, of course, because this is a shipyard, so they got to make sure they don't get raided. And so I picture Relic as basically being like a donut shape, with docks along the outside for ships, and then on the inside of the donut, that's where they do the construction, and they build like one ship at a time. So it's got to be something small enough that fits inside this donut. And then, so all along the inner rim of Relic is where the workers come in and out through the airlocks to go outside and work outside, or to sit in there and run the robots that do most of the assembly. But on the outer ring, there are a bunch of research labs. And the reason there are a bunch of research labs is because of these weird fungi that exist on the planet Carrion. And so they're doing research. They take samples of the atmosphere. They send people down in corrosion-resistant suits to take samples of the fungi and so on. And the settlement trouble here, of course, is hostile life forms. So I think what's been happening is that the fungi are kind of poisonous, and they're potentially attacking people. So Krista steps out into the outer ring of Relic because she's docked on the outside with her ship, and she's on Relic Station now. And she pulls out her data pad and she looks through it for which room number Zephyr is in, and then she pockets the data pad and she starts looking along the bulkhead, and the numbers are stamped on the side of each room, which room number, O1 for outer ring 1, O2, and so forth. And so she walks along. There aren't many people in this corridor because it's a pretty small population on here. There are only maybe, like I said, 50 people, and probably 40 of them are engaged in the shipbuilding process, and maybe 10 of them are doing the research. Most of these people are researching, kind of doing science research of like on the atmosphere and the life forms here. But Zephyr and Mina were doing research on the barren vault that's down here and any archaeology that is associated with it. And Krista noticed that vault when she docked, so she's curious about it. So she's carrying with her this old piece of broken pottery that she found the last place she was scavenging, and she's not sure if it's anything of value. And she goes to O4, which is Zephyr's room, and she presses the button, and there's a little beep inside, and the little speaker, and she hears Zephyr's voice say, "Who is it?" And she says, "It's Krista. You sent for me?" And Rowena says, "Oh, yes, come in, come in." And the door slides open, and Krista steps inside. So she's inside this laboratory, and you can see there are microscopes in one spot, and there are some magnifying glasses and things like that. There are scanners. There's a big screen where you put things on a magnifying surface, and it blows it up onto the screen. There's an analyzer that projects a hollow image of the items and things like that. And one of the items is currently in the hollow analyzer. It looks like some sort of an old tool, like a wrench or something, and it's rotating slowly around as Zephyr analyzes it. And there are all kinds of tools of the archaeological trade, brushes and stuff to brush things off. And so all the mechanical, like the old school stuff. But then there are little air guns that blow air on things, and there are little miniature vacuum cleaners and stuff to vacuum up dust and all of that to clean things up. And so Zephyr is kind of sitting at the hollow analyzer and looking at the rotating image, and she's sort of panning it back and forth and rotating a little bit and then flipping it. And she's taking measurements and typing them into a data pad. And Krista steps in, and she says, "Zephyr, how are you? I haven't seen you in a while." And so Zephyr turns around and she says, "Oh, Krista, thank the stars you came. I really need your help." And Krista says, "You need my help? For what?" "I actually was going to ask for your help." She holds up the piece of ceramic. She says, "I have something here for you to analyze." And Zephyr says that's not important right now. And so Krista's a little taken aback because Zephyr is always interested in artifacts. And she says, "What do you mean this isn't important right now?" And Marina says, "You don't understand. Mina's missing." And Krista scratches her head, kind of tucks her hair behind her ear, and she says, "Mina?" And she thinks about this and trying to remember who it is. And Zephyr says, "You remember Dagger?" And Krista says, "Oh, yeah, I think I met her a couple of times." "What do you mean she's missing?" And Rowena says, "Well, she went out on an archaeological dig, and she's not come back." And so Krista says, "Well, where did she go on this archaeological dig?" So we're going to ask the Oracle, and I think she went down to the barren vault that's on the surface of Carrion. So let's ask the Oracle. And it looks like he's changed this a little bit. All right, so I think it's likely that she went down to the vault, but she might have gone somewhere else. Yes. So, Zephyr turns to her computer and she punches up a couple of buttons, and on the computer screen, and I want you to picture this computer screen, guys. It's a probably an LED screen like we have in terms of what the screen looks like, but imagine it's surrounded by all kinds of thick, kind of rubberized metal or whatever. It's kind of I don't know, cyberpunk. I'm not sure what the aesthetic is, but it's not this nice slim bezel around the outside. It's got these. It's like a thick, old, used, future-looking kind of a screen, and she punches it up, and so a map appears of Carrion, and she types a couple things, and it spins, and she says, "Look here," and she says zoom in, and the computer zooms in for her, and you can see the picture of this vault that's on the ground. And um, Zephyr says there is an ancient vault here, and I sent Dagger down to see if she could recover anything, and she never came back. She's been missing for a couple of days, and you know me, I'm not one for going on adventures. Nobody here wants to go look for her. Everybody is afraid to go down there. And Mina says, sorry, and Krista says, why is everybody afraid to go down there? And so I think that they're afraid to go down there because, remember, we have these hostile life forms, right? And so Zephyr says, well, you see, the place is the atmosphere is toxic. Normal, regular life, like we know it, humanoid life, mammalian life, even lizard life, cannot survive there. But there are these fungi that grow all over the place. The whole surface is covered with it. These sort of yellow and orange fungi that just dwell in this toxic atmosphere. They're immune to it, and they feed on um, what we would call organic life, the regular life that can't survive down there. And we don't really even know what they eat when they're not like devouring the corpses of bodies like ours or a mammal or something, because there isn't any regular mammalian or reptilian or avian life here as we know it. It's all fungi and bacteria that can live in this hostile environment. So she says, these. So what I think is, I think the fungi have been attacking the researchers when they go down onto Carrion. Is that the case? I think that's likely. Yes. So she says these fungi have in somehow, and we're not sure how they're like attacking us. People go down and they come back covered in fungi, and some of them have been killed, and so these things are quite hostile to us. And so I warned Dagger about this, and um, I told her to be careful. I didn't think there were any fungi on the vault. It looks pretty barren. I don't know what happened, but we lost communication with her. She didn't send up any alarms, and she never came back. I need help. I can't go down there. Everybody else here is busy doing their own work or building the ships. Nobody wants to risk going down there anymore. And um, and let's see, I need a name for the leader. So I'm going to pause it here and think about what the name of the leader is. And I don't mean his name, I mean his rank or his title. All right, so I'm going to start making a record of the characters we have here. This guy is called an administrator, I decided. And so she says administrator, and let's give him a name. His family name is Malik. Administrator, well, we already did Malik, so we're going to re-roll that. Administrator Blackstone. He's the corrupt leader of Relic Station. Administrator Blackstone won't expend any resources to help her. He's only interested in money from selling the ships that we're building. And she's not bringing in any money. He would just as soon see research stopped here. He just can't because the funding of the sector authority is provided on the basis of the research we do here. So she says he's not providing any help. I can't go down there. I need somebody who's more of an adventurer, more of an explorer to go down. Can you help? I can analyze that piece for you, but I really need you to go down and see if you can help Dagger. And Krista says, "Well, I don't. I mean, I have an environmental suit, but I don't have one that's corrosion resistant." And so, does Rowena have that? I think that's probably likely. Or should we make a move? Should we make our first move? This could be securing an advantage, right? Making preparations. And she's doing it with loyalty, right? I think so. I think we're going to secure an advantage. She's going to say, look, um, my environmental suit, I only got one, and I don't want it to get corroded by this thing. Do you have one that I can use that's corrosion resistant? And let's see if Rowena does. Let's secure an advantage. We're securing with heart. Nope. So Rowena says, no, I'm sorry, I don't have one. You're going to have to use your own environmental suit. I mean, that's part of the problem. There's a shortage of these. The corrosion, none of them are completely corrosion resistant. And now we have to pay the price. And I think... So let's see. Let me pause here as I think about what the price will be. All right, fair enough. We face a tough choice, right? That's one of the options here. You face a tough choice. The tough choice is: are we going to do this? And whoops, are we going to do this? And why does it keep doing that? I'm trying to minimize this. Oh, I need to hit that. Sorry, guys. It's going to take me a while to get used to this interface. The choice is: are we going to do this and risk our own environmental suit, which will be some pay the prices when we get down on the surface, or are we going to just give up and say we're not going to help? I think we're going to do it. Krista says, well, look, I do have an environmental suit on my ship, and I guess I can repair it once I get back. I think it's important to find your friend. I met Dagger. She seemed pretty nice. I don't want her to get hurt down there, and after all, that's a vault. I'm kind of curious what's down there. And Rowena pales when she says that. She's, look, I don't want you to explore things. I just want you to find Dagger and bring her back. I don't want you to get lost too. And Krista says, well, don't worry. I'll get her back, and I'll look around, because she's both curious and loyal. And she says, all right. And she pulls the chain out from around her neck, and she pulls the fragment of the Ophion out and holds it in her hand. And Rowena's eyes widen, and she says, is that what I think it is? And Krista says, yeah, this is the piece of the ship that I was telling you about. It's a piece of the Ophion. And Rowena looks at it. She doesn't touch it, but she says, wow, that's amazing. And Krista says, all right. And she holds it in her hand. I think I understand how to do this. And then she closes her eyes and she says, Rowena, I swear that I will do everything I can to bring your friend, Dagger, back here safely. And now, we're going to swear an iron vow, right? So, I'm going to give this a rank of troublesome. I don't want to start with an incredibly dangerous vow. So I'm going to give it a rank of troublesome, and we're going to swear an iron vow. Let's hope this roll comes out better than the other one. These virtual dice don't like me any better than my real dice. So let's see what happens. We're rolling heart. I swear this vow to someone who has a connection, so we add bonus of +1. Yikes! That is a miss. So we overcome a significant obstacle before we begin the quest. So what stands in our way? I think something is going to happen on the station. I think something is going to happen on the station. And so while she's in the middle of swearing the Iron Vow, she doesn't even get the words out. Let's see if this is, I think we're just going to do it. She doesn't even get the words out, and all of a sudden, the red alert klaxon goes off. Eh, eh. And they both look up, and she drops the pendant, and it's just hanging down outside of her clothes now, where she doesn't normally keep it. And what the heck is that? So what is it? What sort of a threat is coming to the relic station right now? So let me pause and look at the oracles, and then I'll bring you back when I figured out what to roll on. All right, so guys, I noticed that there is a sector trouble, right? That energy storms are rampant in this sector. So I think it's almost certain that what's happening now is suddenly an energy storm is hitting the station, and it's like maybe overwhelming their shields, if they even have shields. I don't even know if they have shields. I don't think there's shield technology in this universe. So it's hitting the station, it's bombarding the edge of the station, and I think it's almost certain that this is an energy storm. Is it? Is it going to roll for me? What's going on here? Come on, guys. There we go. Yep. So, by the way, I do want to point out that in Ironsworn, almost certain is 11 or more. It's rolling over. In this one, it's 90 or less. But in any case, yes. So so all of a sudden, it's being bombarded with an energy storm. And so now, this means it's going to potentially affect the Storm Swept as well, right? So Krista curses, and she immediately grabs her pendant and sticks it under her shirt, and she says, "Blast it all, I've got to get to my ship. I want to get away from this thing. I'm going to go to the other side of the planet so it can shield me from the storm." So what I'm going to say here is that the storm, I can put a ruler, the storm is coming from this direction, right? Because Relic is on this side of the planet. So the storm is coming from this direction and going this way. And what Krista is going to have to do is get on her ship and sail it around to the opposite side of of Carrion, so that it be in the shadow of the planet, so the energy hits Carrion and goes around it, right? But it blocks the ship. You know what I mean? It blocks the wave from the ship. So I think that's what she's going to have to do. So let's think about the moves that we have to make here to try and get this to work. This isn't exploration. I think it's not combat. I think these are adventure moves. I think the first thing she's got to do is get back to her ship in time, right? So that is face danger. So she's going to run back to the ship. We're rolling edge, and she's going to try to get to the ship in time. If she doesn't succeed at this, then I think what it means is the ship is going to be at risk of possibly taking some damage because she didn't get there fast enough. So Krista runs down the passageway past 03, 02, 01, back to the dock, waits for the airlock to cycle very impatiently, and tries to run through up the gangway and back into her ship using edge. Is she able to do it successfully? That's a weak hit, so she succeeds, but not without a cost. So we get to make a suffer move. So she gets back on board the ship. So the question is, what's the cost? So let's think about this. She can lose momentum, harm, stress, companion takes a hit, sacrifice resources, or withstand damage. Okay, so I think that the ship, she was delayed enough that the beginnings of the energy wave are already starting to hit the ship and possibly frazzle some of the instrumentation. So let's do a withstand damage move. And we're rolling vehicle integrity, which is 5, so hopefully that will do all right for us. And I don't know why, for some reason, the rolls are taking a while to happen. So we'll wait a second and see if it rolls, and if not, I'll roll it manually. Let's try rolling it that way. Okay. All right. So we got a strong hit. So she gets on board the ship as the energy wave starts coming over, and she turns on all of the buttons. She's not even reading the weird language. She knows which buttons to press: the red one, the green one, the blue one. Click, 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 click. She reaches up overhead and starts clicking on the buttons above, and her little survey bot Iris sort of floats in behind her and sort of boop, 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 starts asking questions. Not now, Iris. I've got to get us out of here. She fires up the engines, and the first wave of energy hits, and the ship rocks itself, and she starts balancing things, and she reroutes energy from one spot to another, and the ship is able to withstand that first wave of energy. All right, and then she's going to fire up the engines and try to get it around to the other side of Relic. Other side of Carrion. And so, so let me look up how to do this. I think this is probably just going to be another face danger move. But let me just look this up, and then I'll bring you back. Yeah, as usual, I don't like making multiple moves in a row, but I feel like that's pretty much the only option, other than maybe securing an advantage. I don't think so. I mean, I think this is just she's just really quickly trying to fire up the engines and get the heck around the other side of Carrion. So we're going to face danger this time plus edge, because you're doing it with speed, right? She's trying to move around the planet fast enough. So let's see if she gets around it fast enough. We get a weak hit. So I think, again, because it's the ship, right, I think it's got to make another integrity roll, right? Another withstand damage. Let's see if I can get it to actually work this time. So let's try it. Nope, that seems to be buggy because it's not rolling. So we'll roll the vehicle's integrity over here. Well, it's actually not, we're not actually withstanding damage right now, right? We're making a suffer move of -1. So, okay, so the integrity went down to 4, right? Because it's -1. And then we got a strong hit on withstanding damage. So we can bypass it or write it out. So we bypassed it. Okay. So so the vehicle got hit, and she bypassed, I'd even described it, right? She bypassed a bunch of stuff and rerouted power, and then we got around the other side, and now we go back down to 4 integrity, and now we're going to withstand damage again. And again, it doesn't seem to be able to make the roll. So we'll do it from here. And we get a weak hit. We can lose momentum in exchange for +1 integrity, so we will do that. So she goes down to 1 momentum, right? And this makes sense. She's lost a lot of time. She's lost some momentum, but she's managed to bypass enough and get around the shadow of the ship, the shadow of the planet, that her ship is out of the way, and the energy hits Relic and hits this northeast, if you want to call it that, side of the planet, and it does whatever damage it's going to do to them. But she gets her ship out of the way. She's bathed in some of the energy because she didn't get it around fast enough, but she kept bypassing things, and it delayed her, but it enabled her to protect her ship from the worst of the damage. So I hope I didn't confuse people too much on that. I made a mistake with the suffer move, but I think it I think it worked correctly. I think I did it right in the end there. And so that is, I think that's where we're going to leave it because this has already been a 45-minute session. So we weren't able to actually get the Iron Vow sworn. So she's going to have to go back to the station and see if Zephyr is okay and try swearing that Iron Vow again. And because I think I'll have to check it, but I think if you miss on the Iron Vow, you don't actually get to start it, right? On a miss, you must overcome significant obstacle before you begin your quest. I don't know if that means we have to roll it again or if we can start the vow. So I'll look that up in between sessions and I'll bring you back. Again, I apologize for some of the clunkiness of this or a lot of bumps in the road because I'm still new both to Starforged and to doing it on this in this interface, and there's a couple bugs that I'll need to report actually so that they can fix it. And so I do apologize for that, but hopefully you enjoyed it. And until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been Starforged Alpha Cluster.